My name is Olivia Hayes, and if you had asked me just a few months ago to describe my life, I would have told you it was ordinary in the best way. I was 42 years old, a nurse, a mother to two amazing kids, Jacob, 13, and Chloe, 10, and a wife of 15 years to Ethan Hayes. We weren't perfect, but who is? I thought our life was steady, predictable, built on trust. I thought we were a team. I thought wrong. The papers. It started with a stack of unopened mail. On a rainy Thursday evening, after another 12-hour shift at the hospital, I was clearing the kitchen table. Jacob had left his science project sprawled across it, a mess of wires and cardboard that looked like an alien spaceship, and Chloe's crayons were scattered in every direction. Beneath the chaos sat a mound of envelopes Ethan had promised, twice, to sort through. I was grumbling under my breath when one thick envelope caught my eye. The embossed logo in the corner read, First National Capital Mortgage. My stomach dropped. We paid off our mortgage 8 years ago. The house was supposed to be ours, our safe place, our anchor. Why would a mortgage company be writing to us now? My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside were words that shifted my entire world. Outstanding balance, $200,000. Loan holder, Ethan Hayes. Collateral, 38, Maplewood Drive, our home. For a moment, I thought it had to be a mistake. Some clerical error, maybe even a scam. Ethan would never do something like this. He couldn't. He wouldn't. But the letter was real. Too real. The confrontation. When Ethan came home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room, the papers clenched in my shaking hands. You mortgaged the house? My voice cracked. Tell me this isn't real. He froze in the doorway, his work bag slung over one shoulder. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then, slowly, he set the bag down and sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. He looked like a child who'd been caught doing something unforgivable. The silence stretched until I thought I would choke on it. Ethan, I whispered, holding up the papers, tell me this is some kind of mistake. He didn't answer. The words on the page blurred as hot tears filled my eyes. Outstanding balance, $200,000. My whole body trembled. How could you keep this from me? I demanded, louder this time. How could you risk everything we've worked for, everything we've built, for what? Why? He finally lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. His voice came out hoarse. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. I snapped, slamming the papers onto the coffee table. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you mortgaged our home behind my back. Do you even understand what this means? Do you even care? Ethan rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling shakily. I didn't have a choice, Liv. I was in a tight spot. A tight spot? My laugh was bitter. What kind of tight spot justifies risking our kids' security? Risking Chloe and Jacob's home? His silence was answer enough. It clicked. The late nights, the missed soccer games, the evasive excuses. It's the gambling, isn't it? My voice was barely a whisper. The way he avoided my eyes told me everything. Old wounds. We'd been down this road before. Years ago, when Jacob was still a baby, Ethan lost a big chunk of his paycheck betting on college basketball games. I found out when the credit card bill came in nearly double what it should have been. He swore it was a one-time mistake, that he'd never do it again. And like a fool, I believed him. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You believe them, even when you shouldn't. But this wasn't a credit card bill. This was our house. How much? I asked coldly. Ethan stared at the floor. About $100,000. The words hit me like a punch. 100,000? My voice cracked. Ethan, how? Why? How could you put us at risk like this? What happens to the kids if we lose the house? He reached for me, but I stepped back, my hands trembling. I didn't mean for it to get this far, he said. I thought I could pay it back before it got out of control. I just needed more time. I shook my head in disbelief. Time? You've had years. And now you've gambled away our future. I couldn't look at him anymore. I turned away, my vision blurred with tears. Sleepless night. That night, Ethan passed out on the couch, his head tilted back, mouth slightly open. I stood in the hallway, watching him, feeling like I was staring at a stranger. I lay awake in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling while the storm outside rattled the windows. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words on that letter. Outstanding balance, $200,000. I thought about Jacob, how proud he'd been of his science project. I thought about Chloe's upcoming soccer tournament, how she'd begged us both to be there. How could I protect them from this? How could I make sure their lives didn't unravel because of Ethan's choices? By the time the first gray light of dawn crept through the blinds, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't wait for Ethan to fix this. I had to take control before everything fell apart. Cracks in the family. The days that followed felt like living in a fog. Ethan and I spoke only when necessary, brief, clipped exchanges about groceries, bills, or whose turn it was to pick up Chloe from soccer practice. The tension hung in the air like smoke. The kids didn't seem to notice at first. Jacob was buried in his science fair project, tinkering with circuits late into the night. Chloe spent every spare moment practicing soccer moves in the backyard. But I knew it wouldn't last. Children notice more than we give them credit for. And they started to notice Ethan. He'd always been the fun parent, the one who stayed up late playing video games with Jacob or let Chloe paint his nails during their spa nights. But lately he was distant, distracted. His smiles didn't reach his eyes anymore. One evening, after I tucked the kids into bed, I found him sitting at the kitchen table staring at nothing, his hands clenched into fists. "We can't keep doing this, Ethan," I said quietly. "The mortgage, the debts, the gambling, it's too much. You need help." "I told you, Olivia," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "I'm handling it." "No," I snapped, slamming the dish towel onto the counter. "You're not. You've been handling it for months, and look where we are, on the brink of losing everything. If this is you handling it, we're doomed." His face twisted. "What do you want me to do, huh? Quit my job? Sell my car? I'm doing the best I can." "Your best isn't good enough," I shot back, my voice trembling with fury. "Do you even realize what you've done? You didn't just risk yourself, you risked all of us."
Me.
"The kids. Do you even care?" That question seemed to wound him more than anything else. His jaw clenched, his hands shook, but instead of answering, he pushed back his chair and stormed out of the room. The slam of the front door echoed through the house like a gunshot. That night, sitting alone in the kitchen, I stared at the mortgage papers spread across the table. I felt anger, fear, but above all, I felt determination. This wasn't just Ethan's mess anymore. It was mine, too. And I was going to find a way to protect my children, whether he stood beside me or not. The morning after Ethan stormed out, I woke to silence. The house was still, the kind of quiet that pressed down on my chest like a weight. I padded into the kitchen, half expecting to see him hunched over a cup of coffee. But the chair he'd pushed back the night before still sat crooked, his jacket draped over it. The mortgage papers were where I'd left them on the table. I almost wished I'd dreamed it all, that the letter, the debt, the betrayal, were just products of exhaustion. But the bold black numbers staring up at me told the truth. Outstanding balance, $200,000. The kids came down for breakfast, yawning and bickering as usual. Jacob was already talking about his science fair presentation, and Chloe wanted to know if she could invite her teammate over after practice. Their normal chatter felt almost cruel, like the universe was mocking me with reminders of what was at stake. I pasted on a smile and poured their cereal, but inside, I was screaming. A friend's voice. By the time I dropped the kids off at school, the weight of it all had become unbearable. I needed someone to talk to. Someone who wouldn't judge me for being blind to Ethan's lies. So I called Megan Brooks, my oldest friend. She picked up on the second ring. "Liv, you okay? You sound off." The moment I heard her voice, steady and familiar, I nearly broke. "Can I come over?" I managed. "Of course."
Right now.
"Don't even knock, just walk in." Megan's apartment was everything my house wasn't. Clean lines, calm colors, no chaos. A single vase of fresh tulips sat on the dining table, filling the air with a subtle sweetness. I sank into her couch, clutching the mug of tea she pressed into my hands, and then the dam broke. I told her everything. The letter, the mortgage, the gambling, Ethan's denial, my fear, my anger, my helplessness. By the time I finished, my tea was cold and Megan was staring at me with wide, furious eyes. "That absolute idiot," she muttered, slamming her mug down. "Liv, you can't let him drag you down with him. You need to protect yourself. And the kids." "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I feel like I'm drowning." Megan's face softened. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Then let me throw you a life preserver. First thing, you need a lawyer. Someone who knows how to deal with financial messes like this." I blinked at her. "A lawyer? Megan, that sounds so final. Like I'm giving up on Ethan." "You're not giving up on him. You're saving yourself." She leaned forward, eyes sharp with conviction. "Listen to me. Ethan made his choices. This debt, this secrecy, it's not yours. You can't fix him, but you can protect Jacob and Chloe. You owe them that much." Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they weren't just from despair. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. Megan pulled out her phone and tapped a few times. "Her name is Laura Kim. She's one of the best family and financial lawyers in the city. I'll text your number. Call her today." Laura Kim. Walking into Laura Kim's office felt surreal. Her reception area smelled faintly of lavender, and the walls were lined with framed diplomas. Everything about the space was warm yet professional, a stark contrast to the cold fear that had taken root in my chest. Laura herself was petite, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything at once. She shook my hand firmly, then gestured for me to sit. "So," she said, folding her hands on her desk, "Megan told me a little bit about your situation. Why don't you start from the beginning?" I recounted the story again, the mortgage, Ethan's gambling, the $200,000 debt. Each word felt heavier than the last. Laura listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, jotting down notes. When I finished, I braced myself for her judgment. But she didn't look shocked. She looked calm. "Olivia," she said gently, "you're not the first person I've seen go through something like this.
And you won't be the last."
What Ethan did is serious, but you're not powerless here. There are steps we can take." "Steps?" I asked, clinging to the word like a lifeline. "First, we separate your finances from his. Open your own bank account. Redirect your paycheck. Make sure nothing you earn can disappear into his debts. Second, we'll review the mortgage and see if there are any legal grounds to challenge or restructure it. Third, we'll document everything, his gambling history, the secrecy, the loans. If this escalates, you'll need proof." I swallowed hard. "This sounds overwhelming." "It is," she admitted. "But you're not alone. I'll guide you through every step. The important thing is you've already taken control by coming here today." For the first time since discovering the letter, I felt the faintest flicker of control returning. Taking back my paycheck. That evening, after picking up Chloe from soccer practice, I sat in the bank's sterile office filling out paperwork. My hands shook as I signed my name, Olivia Hayes, sole account holder. When the teller handed me my new debit card, I felt a rush of something unexpected. Power. On the way home, Chloe chattered about her coach's pep talk, oblivious to the monumental shift happening beside her. By the next morning, my paycheck was rerouted into the new account. For the first time in years, I knew that every cent I earned was safe from Ethan's reach. The growing divide. Ethan noticed almost immediately. He stormed into the kitchen holding a stack of unopened envelopes. "Why is the electric bill in arrears? I thought we had automatic payments set up." I didn't look up from the cutting board. "Because I've set up a new account. From now on, I'll handle the bills." His jaw tightened. "You're cutting me out."
"No, Ethan."
"I'm protecting myself and the kids until you take responsibility for what you've done." His face darkened. "You think I'm some kind of monster?" I finally met his gaze, my knife clattering onto the counter. "You gambled away our security. You risked our children's home. If you don't like the word monster, then give me another one that fits. He flinched, as if I'd struck him. For a moment, I thought he might apologize, but instead he shoved the envelopes back onto the counter and walked out, muttering under his breath. That night, when Jacob asked why Dad seemed so angry all the time, my heart twisted. Quiet resolve. As the days turned into weeks, I began to rebuild, piece by fragile piece. I set up spreadsheets listing every bill, every expense, every dollar I could cover on my own. I arranged payment plans where I could. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Meanwhile, Ethan grew more distant. He'd leave for hours without explanation, come home reeking of cigarette smoke, and collapse onto the couch without a word. The Ethan I married felt like a ghost haunting my home. And yet, for all the chaos, I felt a new strength forming inside me. For years, I had been the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over Ethan's mistakes. But not anymore. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Chloe and Jacob. And for the first time, I believed I could win. Olivia lay awake long after the kids had gone to bed, staring at the ceiling in the dark. The house felt unfamiliar now, every creak of the floorboards reminding her of the lies that had seeped into its walls. Ethan was still out, though he'd claimed earlier he just needed to clear his head. She no longer believed a word he said. When the front door finally opened past midnight, Olivia closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. Ethan staggered in, muttering to himself, the smell of whiskey drifting down the hallway. He didn't even bother coming into their bedroom. Instead, he collapsed on the couch, his snores soon filling the silence. The next morning, Olivia avoided him, focusing instead on getting Jacob and Chloe ready for school. Jacob asked if Dad would be at his upcoming soccer game, and Olivia forced a smile she didn't feel. "We'll see," she said, because she didn't want to promise what Ethan couldn't give. After drop-off, she sat in her car with her phone in her hand, staring at Laura Kim's number. She had promised herself she'd call if things didn't change. And they hadn't. If anything, they were worse. When Laura picked up, her voice was calm but firm. "Olivia, I've been expecting your call. Did Ethan make any progress?" "No," Olivia whispered. "If anything, I think he's hiding more. I don't know what to do." "You keep doing what you're already doing," Laura replied. "Protect your income, track your expenses, and keep your eyes open. If there are more debts, we'll find them. Would you be willing to give me permission to run a full credit search tied to your household?" Olivia hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to know the truth. But then she thought of Jacob's hopeful face, Chloe's laughter at practice, the home they deserved. "Yes," she said finally. "Do it." 2 days later, Laura called her back. Olivia sat at the kitchen table gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Olivia," Laura said, "there's something you need to know. The mortgage isn't the only issue. Ethan took out 2 additional personal loans, one for $50,000 and another for $25,000. Both are in default." The words hit like a punch. $75,000? Olivia whispered.
Yes.
"And because you're married, if those loans weren't signed separately, the creditors might come after shared assets." Olivia pressed her free hand to her forehead. Her vision blurred with tears. How could he do this? How could he keep this from me? Laura's tone softened. "I've seen this before. When someone spirals into gambling or addiction, secrecy becomes part of their daily life. But this doesn't have to be your burden, Olivia. We'll fight to separate your liability from his." Olivia thanked her and hung up, but her hands shook for an hour afterward. She felt sick. That night, when Ethan walked in, she confronted him. "I know about the loans," she said quietly. His face paled, then hardened. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter who. What matters is that you've buried us in even more debt. $75,000, Ethan. Do you even hear yourself?" He slammed his keys on the counter. "You had no right to go digging into my finances." "Our finances," she snapped. "Do you even care what this is doing to the kids?"
To me.
He opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he didn't have an excuse ready. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time, he looked small. I thought I could fix it, he whispered. I thought if I just won big one more time. Stop. Olivia cut in, her voice breaking. Do you hear yourself? You're destroying us, and you're still talking about winning. He didn't respond. He just grabbed his jacket and walked out the door. Olivia sank to the floor, tears spilling freely now. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to erase the last few years of her life. But she couldn't, because Jacob and Chloe needed her to be steady. The next week passed in a blur of tension. Ethan came and went like a shadow, speaking little, doing even less. Olivia focused on work, the kids, and meetings with Laura. Every time she sat in Laura's office, she felt steadier. Laura's clear plans, her calm explanations, her unwavering focus, they were lifelines. One afternoon, Laura suggested mediation. It may help to put everything on the table in a structured setting, she explained. It won't erase the debt, but it will force Ethan to acknowledge it, and we can negotiate how to handle the house, the loans, and your financial separation. The idea terrified Olivia, but she agreed. When the day came, she sat in a neutral office across from Ethan. He looked tired, older than his years, his once neat hair unkempt, his shirt wrinkled. For a brief moment, Olivia remembered the man she had married, the man who used to make her laugh until she cried. But then she remembered the letter, the loans, the lies, and the weight in her chest hardened again. The mediator spoke calmly, outlining the process. Laura sat beside Olivia, steady as a rock, while another lawyer sat with Ethan. As the numbers were laid out, Olivia watched Ethan squirm, his bravado crumbling. When the mediator asked Ethan if he acknowledged the debts, there was a long silence before he muttered, "Yes." It wasn't much, but it was something. After the session, Laura touched Olivia's arm. "That acknowledgement is important. It gives us leverage. We'll work from here." Olivia nodded, though her heart ached. She had wanted Ethan to fight for them, to admit his wrongs and ask for forgiveness. Instead, he looked hollow, as though he had already given up. That night, she tucked Jacob and Chloe into bed and lingered by their doors, listening to their even breathing. She whispered a silent promise to them that no matter what happened, she would protect them. When she finally crawled into bed alone, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. Her marriage was not just broken, it was gone. And for the first time, she let herself imagine a future without Ethan. Olivia woke before dawn, the house wrapped in silence. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the weight of the mediation still heavy on her chest. Ethan had admitted the debts, but he hadn't shown the slightest interest in fixing them, in fixing anything. It was as though he'd already surrendered, and with that surrender, something inside her had snapped too. When she finally rose, she padded through the quiet halls of the house. She touched the walls, the door frames, the little pencil marks where Jacob and Chloe's heights had been measured over the years. This house had once been her dream. Now, it felt like a cage, its foundation cracked by Ethan's lies. By the time the kids woke up, she had made her decision. She didn't tell them yet. She would wait until things were certain, but she knew in her heart there was no turning back. Laura confirmed what Olivia had already suspected. The debts were insurmountable if tied to Ethan, but Olivia could protect herself by legally separating finances, filing for divorce, and arranging for the house to be sold. The numbers were brutal, but Laura showed her how, step by step, she could free herself. It took weeks of paperwork, endless calls, and nights where Olivia lay awake wondering if she was making a mistake. But every time Ethan stumbled home drunk, every time he looked past Jacob and Chloe as if they were strangers, she remembered why she was doing this. She couldn't save him. She could only save herself and her children. One evening, after Chloe had gone to bed and Jacob was finishing his homework, Ethan cornered Olivia in the kitchen. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice slurred. "So that's it? You're just going to throw away everything we built?" She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the man she had married, but the man he had become. "You threw it away, Ethan. I'm just picking up the pieces." For a moment, rage flickered across his face, but then it faded, replaced by something worse. Apathy. He shrugged, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and walked away without another word. That was when Olivia knew there was nothing left to fight for. The day the house sold was both devastating and liberating. Olivia stood in the empty living room, the echoes of her children's laughter still clinging to the walls. She traced her fingers over the faded pencil marks by the kitchen door one last time, then walked out without looking back. They moved into a smaller place across town, a modest townhouse with a tiny yard and 2 bedrooms for the kids. It wasn't the dream home she had once envisioned, but it was theirs. Safe, simple, and free of Ethan's shadow. At first, Jacob and Chloe struggled. Jacob missed his old room, and Chloe cried the first night, saying it didn't feel like home. Olivia held them both and told them the truth in the gentlest words she could. This isn't where we started, but it's where we begin again. And as long as we're together, that's what makes it home. Slowly, they adjusted. Chloe filled her new room with posters and fairy lights, while Jacob claimed a corner of the living room for his science projects. Olivia worked harder than ever, balancing her job with the endless tasks of single motherhood, but the crushing weight that had haunted her for months was gone. She was tired, yes, but she was free. Megan was there every step of the way, dropping off groceries, helping with school pickups, and reminding Olivia to breathe when the paperwork felt endless. One evening, as they sat on the townhouse's small porch with glasses of wine, Megan said, "You know, Liv, I've never seen you stronger than you are right now." Olivia laughed softly, though tears pricked her eyes. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm just surviving." "Surviving is strength," Megan replied. "And you're not just surviving. You're building something new." Laura guided her through the last of the legal process. The divorce papers were signed without fanfare. Ethan barely showed up. When the judge stamped the documents, Olivia felt a finality that was both painful and healing. She was no longer Mrs. Hayes. She was just Olivia again. In the months that followed, Olivia found a rhythm. Mornings were rushed, but filled with laughter as she packed lunches and helped tie shoes. Evenings were quieter but peaceful, free of slammed doors and angry silences. On weekends, she and the kids explored parks, tried new recipes, and even started a tradition of Friday night movies with popcorn piled high. There were hard days, of course. Nights when the loneliness was sharp, when bills piled up faster than she could pay them, when she worried about whether Jacob and Chloe would ever forgive their father. But there was also joy, small, steady joy that grew each day. One Saturday morning, Olivia sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching the kids argue good-naturedly over a board game. Sunlight spilled through the window, warming the room. For the first time in what felt like forever, she let herself breathe deeply. She had walked through fire and survived. Ethan was still out there somewhere, chasing bets and drowning in his own mistakes. Maybe he would someday find his way back to himself. Maybe not. But that was no longer her battle. She had her own path now. When Chloe looked up and said, "Mom, can we paint the living room this weekend?" Olivia smiled. Of course we can. Because this was their home now. Imperfect, but theirs. And as Olivia watched her children laugh, she knew that even though her life hadn't gone the way she once dreamed, she had built something stronger, something honest, something unshakable. She had built a future. And with that, our story comes to an end, but the real story begins with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments.